This is an excerpt used with permission from the book Woman, This is War: Gender, Slavery, and the Evangelical Caste System by Jocelyn Andersen. Fried egg sandwich. My wife was upset because I would not allow her to get her nails done. But, you see, Adam was in charge. The man has the rule over his wife. If a man wakes up at 3 a.m. hungry for a fried egg sandwich, then she has to get up and make it for him. I was not sympathetic with what I was hearing from the man behind the pulpit. But as the speaker shared his views on what he believed constituted a biblical marriage relationship, my heart did go out to his wife. He unapologetically ruled supreme in their home, deciding the smallest details of their daily lives, even whether or not his wife could have her nails done on a given day. There was no question about her submission, and because she submitted meekly to his bullying, he was pleased to present her as a splendid example of biblical womanhood. Even so, I was convinced that describing her as scared to death of him would have come closer to the truth. When this man's wife was awakened from peaceful slumber in the middle of the night and forced out of bed to cook that egg, did she get up willingly, or did she feel like the live-in body servant her husband obviously believed she was? Did she lovingly prepare that sandwich while enjoying a few compassionable moments with her spouse? Or did she, to all outward appearances, joyfully set it on the table, all the while wishing she was still back in bed? When he received that sandwich, did he eat it with relish and the satisfaction of believing that all was as it should be in his world? Would it have bothered him to know that his wife may not have shared his sentiments? And if she felt resentful and used at having her rest disturbed for no other reason than to satisfy his craving for a 3 a.m. snack, would it have been Christ-like of him to have blitherily enjoyed that snack without giving a second thought to her feelings? While recognizing and appreciating God-given differences between the sexes, this book explores the answers to these and other questions pertaining to the biblical appropriateness or inappropriateness of assigning rigid gender roles to men and women that claim to pertain to both this life and the next. $12 tuna. I was hungry and was waiting for a plane, so in spite of exorbitant airport prices, I decided to purchase a little something to eat. That little something turned out to be a simple tuna sandwich and drink that came to a whopping total of $13. Although I was appalled at what I was asked to pay for that sandwich, I had to admit it was the best tuna sandwich I had ever tasted. So I took note of the ingredients and added a new recipe, $12 tuna, to my personal cookbook. It was an instant hit at home, and my husband Butch began to take $12 tuna for lunch on a regular basis. He and I have always enjoyed a relaxed and peaceful life together. We are very compatible and in agreement about most things. One thing that could have been a major issue in the early days of our marriage was my job. I was employed in a corporate position which required extensive travel, and I was typically gone for a few weeks every month. My husband knew this would be the case when he encouraged me to take the job, only 1 week after our wedding. We both felt that we had no idea why, that it was God's will for me to accept the offer. We now know why and are grateful that we were obedient to the Spirit of the Lord concerning that job. When I was not traveling, I cooked most of our meals, but Butch had no problem with cooking and cleaning, whether I was on the road or not. And he always insisted on making his own lunches, even when I was at home. I was more than willing to make them for him, but he would not hear of it. So our weekly mornings fell into the pleasant routine of getting up early, drinking our coffee, reading our Bibles, and chatting with one another for a few minutes before Butch began preparing his lunch while I got ready for my day at the office. Things have changed quite a bit at our house since those early days when we both worked outside of the home. We both still work, but adjusting to work at home has been a challenge at times. Butch often begins his day in the middle of night. Some days I get up with him. We enjoy spending time together, even if it's in the middle of the night, but depending upon whether or not I go to bed early or burn the midnight oil, I sometimes stay in bed when he gets up. And by mutual agreement, that works for us. The introduction of the $12 tuna into our lives caused a slight bump in the road, which thankfully we quickly ironed out and found that it helped to clarify our thinking on the fried egg sandwich issue at the same time. We had discussed the fried egg sandwich scenario many times and agreed that not only was it not for us, but we believed it was sinful as well. Butch loved my $12 tuna, and for a while he took it for lunch at least once a week. It was my special gift to him, although he did not know that at first. At this point, some will think a tuna sandwich? That's no special gift. That is just preparing your husband's lunch and sending food he likes to work with him. But I disagree. And my husband says he disagrees as well. Butch likes all kinds of food, but for his lunches, he has a preference for sandwiches. He is quite happy with bologna sandwiches, ham sandwiches, turkey sandwiches, and chicken sandwiches, along with an occasional order of taquitos from the convenience store for variety. He is not difficult to please when it comes to food, and my $12 tuna particularly pleased him, and that made me feel good. Well, it turns out my easy-to-please, independent husband, who has always insisted on making his own lunches, did not have a clue as to how to make $12 tuna, and he was not the least bit interested in learning how. He had often watched me make it and knew that it required a bit more preparation than he wanted to put into it in the middle of the night. Although he enjoyed sandwiches, he did not require me to make them for him. I made them because I wanted to. It was a personal thing with me. I knew he loved them, and it was one of those little things I enjoyed doing for him. However, Butch wasn't aware that making the $12 tuna for his lunches was a special labor of love, until the day I thought he was requiring it of me. Late one night, forgetting the next day was usually $12 tuna day, I forgot to make it and dragged my weary self off to bed around midnight. When Butch's alarm went off at 2 a.m., I had barely been asleep for 2 hours. I may have been briefly awakened at his alarm, but had no intention of getting up. That would not have been unusual. By mutual agreement, due to our different work schedules, if I was still sleeping when Butch woke up, he just got up, went to work, and we saw each other later. This particular morning, though, he had no idea that I had been asleep for only a few hours. All he saw was that I appeared to be awake when the alarm went off. That would not have been unusual either. He must have woke up hungry, and it being $12 tuna day, asked me, very sweetly of course, if I was going to get up and make it for him. It was so out of character for Butch to ask me to get out of bed in the middle of the night to prepare food for him that I should have realized he believed I was wide awake. My answer was a less than Christ-like, "Are you kidding?" I did feel badly, though, about forgetting to make his $12 tuna, as well as for my poor attitude, even if it was 2 a.m. When I asked him about it later, he told me that he had not taken anything at all for lunch that day. Then the guilt really kicked in, and I worked myself into quite a lather, imagining that he had gone lunchless just to spite me. Now that would have been entirely out of character for my husband, and I knew that, but my conscience was killing me over my poor attitude and for him going hungry. So I accused him of being manipulative and trying to control me through guilt. I was furious that he did not respect our mutual agreement to keep different sleep-wake schedules, and that he would stoop so low as to go without lunch in order to manipulate me. I declared that I would get up in the middle of the night and make $12 tuna sandwiches from now on, only it would no longer be a labor of love, but rather an act of compliance. I told him that in the future his $12 tuna would be nothing more than a fried egg sandwich. If that declaration had been allowed to stand, not only would $12 tuna have been turned into fried egg sandwiches, but the reality of our uniquely balanced, completely voluntary love relationship would have changed as well on both sides, and neither of us wanted that. Well, I have a wonderful husband who patiently explained what I should have known all along, that he honestly believed that I had been wide awake, as I frequently am. On more than one occasion, he had watched me cheerfully making $12 tuna at 3 a.m., and he, having no idea what time I had actually gone to bed, thought this was just another one of those early mornings I would be up with him. He had gone without lunch, not to spite me, but because it had been a particularly busy day at work, and he had not had time to stop for taquitos, which he had planned to do. I sincerely repented for my terrible attitude and begged his forgiveness. He forgave me and assured me that he could never enjoy a bite of $12 tuna if it was in reality a fried egg sandwich. When husbands demand compliance, even in an appearance of cheerful, joyful compliance from wives, $12 tuna is turned into fried egg sandwiches, and something has gone seriously awry in any marriage. The mystical, heavenly, completely voluntary love union that represents that of Christ and His church at that point completely ceases to be and is replaced by an earthly compliance that should be as abhorrent to any husband as it is to Christ. Our God compels us to do nothing, and certainly is not interested in mere compliance. If that was the case, He would have created a world full of automatons. But He did not. From us, from both His sons and His daughters, He wants only $12 tuna, and He will spew fried egg sandwiches from His mouth.